Yes, brother.
Get the phone number for the funeral directors.
Oh, you can go online. Nowadays, everything's on Google. Just local funeral home in Indianapolis, funeral home in Detroit. You get to hold us. You can do that too. Now, alhamdulillah, many, the question was, directory for funeral homes. Now, every major city has a Muslim funeral home. I know Detroit has one. New York actually has a few. Dallas has one. St. Louis has one. LA, Bay Area, they each have one. So if you want, maybe you can ask me. But if you just go online, I'm sure, they advertise Detroit Muslim Funeral Home, it comes up. Virginia Muslim Funeral Home, it comes up. But in the smaller cities, like if you're in Nebraska, you're in Idaho, you're probably not going to get a Muslim there. But you can talk to any local funeral home and tell them we don't want the body embalmed. If they insist, go somewhere else. The question was, yes, brother. Oh, mashallah, yes. No, you do not. The question was, do you need a casket to bury? No, you do not. Technically, you can even bury the body just like, with the coffin. But that's a good question. It's not a law by the state, but it is a requirement by the cemetery. So the cemeteries right now, we have 9 different cemeteries with the Muslims, just the way they make money. But you don't need any container. Yes, so Brother Imran is saying, like here in Darien, they have water in the graves, so to protect, the bodies from the water. But to be honest, it's a requirement of the cemetery, but there's no law. Rose Hill, Park Home, Chapel Hill, all these, they require you to pay for a cement box, but there's no law that says you have to have a cement box or a casket. Their reasoning is, one of the reasons like Brother Imran, the other is they say, heavy machinery goes over the graves. And because of that, if there's nothing inside at the cement box, then it just sinks in. Another reason is animals. The third, it doesn't really make sense. If the body's underground, animals are not going to come in. People have been burying for centuries, that had not been an issue. As far as the machinery is concerned, the cemetery can be planned in such a way that but sometimes what happens is, families buy chunks of graves, like in Rose Hill. Back in the 80s, when they sold, I'm sure many of you remember, they sold them for like $200 a grave. So one person, whole family might buy 10. This is for my family, 10. So what happens is then you have clumps. So one family is here, one family is here, and the rest are full. Then what do you do? Then in order to open this particular grave, you have to go over the graves that are used. So that actually, to be honest, that may make sense. If you do it that way, then the heavy machinery goes over. But just to be clear, full disclaimer, there is no law that says you have to have a cement box or you have to have a casket. Yes. Question. Actually, this brother had a question.
How much does embalming?
How much does embalming cost? It depends on where you go. Normally here in the city of Chicago, $600 to $800. It's like a surgery. It takes 4 to 8 hours. It's all interior, and they have machines, and it has to be a licensed person that does that. So anywhere 6 to 8 hours.
If you have slides, you want to do a Q&A at the end?
Sure, we can do that. Yeah. No, I just thought this before we get to the other topics.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. So an autopsy, this is very light. An autopsy you said is haram?
Autopsy should not be done unless there is a reason to do it. So just because somebody, we had a case a few years ago, it was actually in the news. Somebody won the lottery and then he died, and then they actually took out the body to do an autopsy. So normally if somebody is old, and if you suspect some foul play, if there was murder in that case, actually there was some poisoning, somebody had been poisoned. So in case you suspect some foul play, maybe, but otherwise it's invasive, it's very invasive. sisters.
You mentioned the timings, brother, so office closed at 3 o'clock, so if you pass by Zohar, it's not possible to do it same day?
The question is, the cemeteries close at 3. Yes. So because of that, usually the cemeteries need to be notified by 9 o'clock in the morning. We can stretch it till 10. Anything they don't have enough time to dig the grave. Even with the machinery, it takes a couple of hours to dig the grave, to place the cement box. So that's why it's their requirement at any time before 9 or 10 o'clock.
So this way we are actually doing next day.
Yes, it's next day. Yes. Anybody who dies after, let's say, 10, 11 o'clock, then they... Yes.
I think there's one more question from sister.
Which cemeteries in the Chicagoland area don't require a coffin or casket?
Which cemeteries?
And which don't require a cement box?
Actually, many of them don't. But those that are... See, the masjids had the contracts with the masjids, with these cemeteries. So I don't know if any masjid had a contract. What they do is the masjid, alhamdulillah, in order to serve their communities, they buy hundreds, if not thousands of graves. That's what NCC did. They bought like 2,000-3,000, because if you buy bulk, you can pass the savings on to the families. That's what NCC did initially. Back in the 80s, they bought for 200 and then they pass it on. And now if you buy a grave for NCC, it's like $500. So the reason, so just to answer that sister's question, this property that we're currently looking at has 13,000 graves. This is for all the different communities involved, and we can set our own rules. Then we don't have to have a cement box. Then we don't have to require something. We can even do maybe over the weekends or even in the evenings. But again, so the reason I brought that up is because in negotiations with these cemeteries, the masjids actually had negotiated seller financing. That's the most, I don't know, here, I don't know, Naperville. That what they said that we'll pay you, maybe after 5 years or 3 years. Seller financing. Let's say it costs $1 million, they said we'll pay you $200,000, a year for 5 years. What that does is gives the masjids enough time to fundraise, to publicize, and then the communities get involved and they help pay them off. And that's been the case for Darien, for Rose Hill, for Libertyville. That's what they do. They buy and they say, okay, give us 1 or 2 years and we will pay that off. But this particular property we just happen to be looking at, he's a stickler. He wants, just like he wants money up front. And we're looking at, at least $6 million. But inshallah, we're still negotiating. Hopefully something will come up. Sorry, brother. Brother Imran wanted to say something.
So I was talking about the cement box that we are talking about. If we don't have the cement box, how are we going to put a lid on the top of the grave and then dirt on top of that? So we have to have a concrete, not a box, but a bottomless box with all four sides, so we can put a lid on that and then put dirt on that. Otherwise, how would you put a dirt on directly on the body?
Actually, we do that in Springfield, here in Illinois, and in Boston, where it was done back in Medina or Mecca, or in Pakistan. So what they do is, basically, you dig a grave, you place the body, and then you could put wooden slabs to make sure it's like lahad or a shik, 2 types, it's all in the website, and then you cover the grave with the dirt.
Well, lahad is, it's on the
lahad is
side.
not here.
It's
In
on the side.
Midwest, you can't do
It's
lahad.
not, it's
So we
not
do
possible.
shik. What a shik means, that's what we did in Boston, I did it myself, is that in the middle of the grave, you dig a further grave inside, and then you cover that. The body itself is covered with wooden planks, and then the dirt is placed on. So you don't place the dirt on the body.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Right.
You cannot place the dirt directly on the body.
Yes.
You have to have some cover on top of the body.
Yes.
And you. So if it's a concrete sides, all 4 sides, it is still okay. If it's not a concrete side, then you should still have some arrangement so that the dirt is not placed directly on the body.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Yes. Actually, if you could hold on to the questions.
Yeah, just
Let me
hold on.
Finish.
Yeah,
and
just
then
hold on
I
to
know
the
if
questions,
people
and
have
after that, then we'll take
I
the
just
questions.
wanted you to start thinking. That's good, mashallah, questions are coming. Let me just finish this, and we'll give you a chance for questions. Just a few other important things to keep in mind. Fetal deaths. This is a common thing. It's sad, but it is a reality. Fetal deaths means that babies that die before they're born. For whatever reasons, during pregnancy, some complications, then the baby dies. If we do not claim the body, then the hospital, they dispose of the body. And disposal, to be honest, a lot of times is given to like stem cell research, or they cremate, and that is a common disposition nowadays. Cremation is common. In fact, just as a side note, we actually have a good relationship with the medical examiner's office, all the counties here. Cook County is the biggest county, not just here in Illinois, it's one of the biggest in the country. So they give us a weekly report of the bodies that have been unclaimed in Cook County. And if it's a Muslim name, then we reach out to them. Look, we will take responsibility of a Muslim brother or sister. And we've done many pro bono funerals that way. Some bodies that have not been claimed, then we say, okay, no, this is a Muslim brother. It's farz kifaya. This is our responsibility. The whole Muslim community will be sinners if we do not take care of our fellow brothers and sisters. So we do have, alhamdulillah, ta'alluq, relationship with these the counties. And every week I get a list. Then I said, okay, this name sounds Muslim. I send it back to the Muslim. Then they reach out to the family. Okay, no family. Oh yeah, he was a Muslim. He converted so and so ago. Then what do we do? Okay, we'll take responsibility. Then we have done, pro bono free funerals. While actually another tangent off of that, there's many reverts. Here in Naperville, I don't know if too common. I know definitely in the south side, Masjid Farooq, Masjid Fatir, we had this problem a lot. If you're any contact with any revert brothers, or if you have any programs with them, make it clear to them, get something in writing, that when they die, they should be buried as a Muslim. Have it written, have it notarized, and a copy of that given to the local imam, given to a friend. So in case when they die, because then what happens is the next of kin gets possession of the body. The next of kin, there is an order of who can claim the body. If someone is married, the spouse is the next of kin. There's no way around that. If someone is not married, then either the parents, if someone has children, adult children, then they are next in line. If not, then you can say, oh, brother and cousin, and so on and so forth. But especially our revered brothers, if their families are not Muslims, then this has happened many times, is that just right now, cremation is popular. Not necessarily because people like burning bodies, it just happens to be cheaper. It's just a pure economic decision. Right now, in Illinois, I believe it's like 55%. And the rates are going up. If you go to the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, they're already 65, 70%. And that's why many people are not burying it, because it's out of their budgets. One grave, if you just go buy directly from the cemetery, $2,500, just one grave. I'm not talking about the digging the other, just the grave itself. But alhamdulillah, because the masjids, they have done the service for you, they've bought bulk, they can pass the savings on to you. So now you're paying only $750, whatever. So that's, another thanks, to the masjid itself. But just on that note, so if you know anybody, have them write it down that I want to be buried as a Muslim, have it notarized, passed on to the Imam. So as far as babies, if we don't claim the body, then the hospital would dispose of the body. Normally, cremation, or they just donate the body to, for research. So, and it doesn't matter how small the fetus is. I mean, many times, subhanAllah, it's if you look at a baby, it's really a miracle of Allah. How the organs function, how Allah, فَتَبَارَكَ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ. SubhanAllah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, creates humans. But anyway, no matter how small the baby is, whatever, even if it's not fully formed, whatever is there should be buried. So that's something to keep in mind. Just as a rule, Shari'i-wise, the baby is born alive, even if it's premature, but if it's alive, it takes a breath, then you do janazah. You give it a name, you have a janazah, and then you bury it as non-fetal remains. But even if the baby was full term, but it was born dead, it was a stillbirth, then there's no janazah. And then, if it's possible, you do ghusl and then you still bury. But burial should be, you should still bury. And don't think, I'll just take the baby, I'll bury in my backyard. No, it's just, I've had this, it's not funny, people have wanted that. It's because, as I mentioned, everybody that dies has to have a death certificate. And even though, yes, I can understand, especially for the mothers, who lost the baby, you want something closer, but legally, you cannot. If that's why there's a lot of paperwork involved in this. Somebody who died and there's the burial permit, each cemetery has to keep very particular records of who's buried where. I don't know if you heard a few years back, there was a cemetery, they were using graves multiple times. It becomes a big scam. So that's why they're very particular about this, and people can go to jail for that. Okay, so we mentioned the babies. Next. So now this is just general information. So now what happens if something goes wrong? So now the first step was to contact the funeral director. We've done that. Number 2 is to make the burial arrangements. That's when mashallah Brother Imran comes in, or if he's not available, Brother Masih Siddiqui. Each cemetery, each masjid has their own representatives. MCC has Brother Saif, Brother Elmer's IFS has Baisa Qasim. Each cemetery, each local, each masjid has their funeral representative. So if someone happens first, you call us, we pick up the body, take to our office, we make the intizam for the ghusl and the takfeen and all that. But secondly, you need to take care of the cemetery. It's a completely different department. So then you would call Brother Imran, and then he would contact the cemetery. So he has to physically assign a grave. As I mentioned, they bought hundreds of graves. So now they have to tell the cemetery, okay, dig this, X. And so it's actually, you're given an exact, actually a property. It's a certificate. It's lot number, section number, grave number. So you know exactly where somebody is. This is not like India or Pakistan, you reuse the graves. Which, to be honest, there's nothing wrong with that. In Baqi, in Medina, they do that also. I don't know if you know, they reuse the graves. But here, just for legal purposes, each one person is assigned one grave. Unless for husband and wife, there is some exceptions in certain cemeteries. Not here in Illinois, but the military cemeteries down in Springfield, they do allow that. Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C., they do allow that. Husband and wife can be buried, in the same grave. But here in the Muslim sections, they cannot. So one grave is assigned for one person. So first you call Brother Imran, he will say, he will talk to so-and-so, so look, open this grave today. And then while we're doing the ghusl and the preparation, the cemetery is digging the grave and they're ready for us. And then after we come here for the janazah, then we go to the cemetery. By the time we get there, the grave is ready. Now here, actually Darien was actually pretty good. In one instance that before, okay, now it's different. They used to actually put the cement box upside down, where the body actually touches the dirt. Now they're not doing that. It's like a regular box. Think of it like a shoebox. It's a shoebox. Open the cover. You put the body inside, then you cover it. That's, I believe they're doing it nowadays. Pehle to ulta hota tha na. But now, for whatever reason, because there's some water issues there, in the cemetery. But that's basically that's where it is. That you think of it as a shoebox. So that container with the body is moved, on the wheels here, or in the hearse. When you go there, you carry to to the grave, and then there's an apparatus on the grave that's lowered inside, and then when it gets there, then they cover, the same thing like a shoebox, there's a cover, and then you put the dirt on top. So if you already have graves, some masjids already sell the graves in advance. Some do not. Here, if you want to take Brother Imran's number, it's here, it's on there. If not, later on you can contact Brother Shoaib or Brother Imran directly. MashaAllah, he's here. Or if he's not here, Brother Masih Siddiqui, he also does that. It's on your website actually. The ICN website, it has all that information. But if not, that's his number. So if you do not have a grave, then you reach out to these masjids. Each masjid has a cemetery rep, and his job, if he has the whole map of the cemetery, they will assign according to whatever their rules are. And as needed, okay, now you get this number, that number. If you want to buy in advance, some people do, like somebody's wife passed away, and they say, okay, don't want to just buy one, I want to buy two. And for me also, when I pass away, so we want to be next to each other. It's possible in some, I don't know, yeah, if somebody buys, can you buy extra at the same time? You can? Yes. So in this here, Darien, you can, but some places do not. Like in Park Home, you can't. They go in order. Okay, so these are just a list of cemeteries here. If you're interested, you can look at that on our website. The map is there. So now this is another important part, the last part here, and then we'll open the floor for questions. How much does it cost? As the brother asked, was embalming? Embalming is exceptional. As I mentioned, we usually don't need to embalm. But there's 3 expenses to a funeral. Nowadays, ideally should be more synergized, it should be more coordinated. Alhamdulillah, I think we do pretty well. But some people just want a one-stop shop, just want to write one check. But just due to logistic reasons, there's 3 separate categories. As I mentioned, one is the funeral home. That's us. Muslim Funeral Services, we charge $1,504. That's the basic price, including a simple casket, casket meaning a tray. Some people want different other types of caskets, and obviously they cost more. But it's $1,504. This is how much we charge anywhere in the Chicagoland area to pick up, drop off, and the basic expense. Number 2 is the grave. As I mentioned earlier, that is where the masjid comes in. The masjid will charge you, I believe, $750, $800. Okay, it's $800 for a grave. Different, masjids, they have different prices. So that you pay straight to the masjid, because the masjid is the one that has bought bulk. So you compensate them, for their purchase. And number 3, this is something also needs to be explained, because some people say, oh, I already paid so-and-so, why are you asking me for more money? No. The third charge is the cemetery. It's called opening closing costs. That is paid directly to the cemetery. The cemetery digs the grave. They have machines. They dig the grave. Then they place a cement box inside the ground. So if they use a cement box, you have to pay them for that too. Obviously, depending on where you go, anywhere from $500 to $700 just for the cement box. Then after that's installed, then after we come in, after we put the body inside, then to cover the box with the cover, and then to put the dirt on top, all that is handled by the cemetery. That's called opening closing cost. So that's the third department. So how much are they? We'll see here. What are the numbers here? Let's see. Actually, we did this. The grave from the masjid, the grave itself, as I mentioned, you don't need the actual cement box. Where is here? Here we go. Yes, okay, before we get to the actual numbers, yes. Cemeteries nowadays, as we mentioned, because we are bound by their office hours, most cemeteries, they charge overtime over the weekends. Time and a half usually on Saturdays, on Sundays, almost double. But that's up to you as an individual. You have that option. If you want to pay more, but you want to say, okay, look, I want to bury as soon as possible, and the weekend is better because family is off, I'd rather do it on the weekend, that's fine. But some people say, no, it's too much, I can't pay over the overtime, that's fine. Wait till Monday. But they do charge that much. Saturdays, Sundays, again, sometimes some cemeteries do not. I don't know about Darien. Are they open Sundays?
They're not normally, but we have to request.
Right. So if it happens, if we know in advance, you can ask them to be open on Sundays. But some cemeteries, they just say, no, we're not. Like Rose Hill, they just say, no, forget it. But Sundays, it's like a Catholic thing, and the Sundays, we don't work on Sundays. Again, depends on the cemetery. You have to talk, to the cemetery. So here, but Brother Imran is saying, yes, they can, as long as you tell them in advance. Tombstone. Tombstone is that nameplate with the name and the date of birth and death. That's extra. That's not even included in anything. That can be done later on. But just on this note, if someone does do that, it takes weeks, 6 to 10 weeks, because it's actually granite. They have to sandblast the names. So it's a long process, the email back and forth, that we have to have approved, a signed approval, because if they make a mistake, you can't. And then they usually place the tombstones only during the warmer part of the year. So now all the cemeteries, they do not do this, usually from March to October. So even if someone dies in the winter, you can do the planning, you can make it, but they do not install the grave markers until it gets a little warmer. So what are the numbers here? These are the numbers. So normally for funeral expenses, anywhere from $1,500, as I mentioned, that's starting off. Why so much? $4,000. Some people want a special box. Some people want, like let's say if we're going overseas, they want the body has to be embalmed. But all this stuff, it adds up. Grave, again, depending on which cemetery you're going to. As here, Darien, they charge $800. Different places, they charge different. So depending on the cemetery. Open closing also, it depends on the cemetery. Depending on the cemetery you go to, Bohemian nowadays, that's how much they charge, $1,140. How much is it here? $2,500. But that includes the cement box.
Includes everything.
Yes, mashallah. So $2,500 plus the grave too.
The grave, yes, the grave
The grave $800, and then $2,500. Right. So here in this case, just so you know, so the first one would be $1,500. Number two would be $800. That goes straight to the ICN. And the open closing cost, that includes the cement box. Open closing and the cement box is $2,500. So that goes straight to the cemetery. But that's not to the masjid. And as I mentioned at the end, tombstone is extra. So just one final note, and then we'll open again for the questions. Approximate, that's. But to be honest, it's good news. It's still cheap. $2,500 plus $800. That's what, $3,300 plus $1,500, that's $4,800. That's still less than $5,000. But that is cheap compared to an American funeral, which is anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000. And many of them, nowadays, as you probably heard, most Americans can't even pay for an emergency over $400. So how do they do this? This is another longer question. Many of them, they have life insurance. Life insurance policies, and they pay from that, and that's a whole different thing. But alhamdulillah, Muslims, because thanks to our community members, our elders, alhamdulillah, because they have set up this system here where our masjids are helping our community. Just by being a member of Naperville Masjid, you are saving thousands of dollars. Because otherwise, if you just went, as I mentioned, just the grave itself, you'd be paying anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500. Just go. If you happen to drive by somewhere, just stop by. Hey, I'm interested. How much do you charge? And they'll tell you. It's not even counting the open closing. It's not counting all the other stuff. So now, as the sister mentioned, the need of the time actually is to have our own cemetery. And as I mentioned, alhamdulillah, we are working on that. Just make dua. Inshallah, hopefully within a few months we may have some good news. But yeah, it is it's an expensive proposition, and to be honest, many communities do not. I know New York, I'm not sure. I know Dallas has one. Dallas has a complete Muslim cemetery, but I don't know if you've been there. It's like, even though it's closer to the community, but people just don't use it. That's a whole different story. So ideally, if the Muslim community value it this much, that you want the proper sunnat burial, you want something closer, then if we can help you, that would be great. Well, inshallah, we can discuss that in the future. So now, that's this extra stuff, inshallah. Any questions? We'll leave that, and then we'll have, yes, brother.
Yeah. So inshallah, we'll do a Q&A session. Just a few important reminders. So as Sheikh Dawood talked about, we started this new spiritual and social committee. This is one of the first programs. I would really like to acknowledge the brothers and sisters in this committee to put together. The Razi, I've talked to Mufti Haroon Firdausi, the Sadiq, and the sister side as well. So inshallah, plan is to continue to offer these programs. Few things I wanted to point out for everyone to know that we, ICN, will be looking at the options to have our own facility, and we're just evaluating in needs, either be 75th or the new masjid that's inshallah will be coming up. So I just wanted to share that we just had the discussion this Saturday also. So some of these important needs of the community we are looking into. And I'm very grateful and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us this opportunity to have this program. I think it's very important for us to know the details, and inshallah we'll open up the Q&A session, and then after that there will be a demo also, right? There's a demo here for the brothers, and then a demo for the sisters will be in the men's prayer hall. And I believe we have time, the Asr, so before the Asr prayer. And before you go up, you can continue with the Q&A, and then we'll break off for just snacks. We have sandwiches here, and then inshallah we'll go for the demo and the prayer. After the demo, inshallah. Food will be after the demo. Okay, jazakallah khair. 15-20 minutes for the demo?
That will take about 20-30 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, then we can see. Okay. So, but food is here. Okay. Okay, so maybe we start from the sisters' first question.
So, as a revert, it's a lot of things that I'm not quite sure about. And not having family that's Muslim, I want to be able to be buried as a Muslim. So is it just I write it out on any piece of paper, or is it a form that I need to say I want to be buried as a Muslim?
I know ISNA has like a rough template if you go on ISNA's website, or if not, it doesn't have to be, you can just write it out on your own. I, so-and-so, being of sound mind and body, would like to declare that I would like to be buried as a Muslim.
Okay.
And then you have it notarized. In fact, I would say have 2 witnesses, and then have it notarized, so it's illegal, so it becomes legal.
Okay.
And then I would pass that on to your family members.
Okay.
Tell them first, because it may become like a family issue. Even right now, they may be hesitant, but at least so they know. I tell them, look, I'm giving this to the Imam so and so also. So as soon as I die, they will take care of me.
Okay. And then
so that way, it doesn't become a legal issue later on.
Okay, and then also looking at those prices. Is it a way that we make payments so that by the time, inshallah, if something happens, everything is paid for?
Right, so what you're asking about is prepaying.
Yes.
To be honest, we don't have that facility here, because there's legalities involved in that. Once you take money for somebody, how do you keep track of that money? The state keeps track of that. It's called pre-planning. So we as MFS, we do not, but because we're not that expensive, we've done many funerals for free, as I mentioned that, because this is more of a service to the community. If somebody can't afford it, if somebody's family has some tight strings, okay, fine, pay later, pay a week later, or sometimes the community helps out, the family members help out, or sometimes the masjid actually. I know mashallah, Naperville masjids have done, but no, we don't do pre-planning, no. Yes, sister.
I am also a revert, and I am not in a financial position to be contributing at this point. I do have a house, and I do have a small life insurance policy, but the point is, I'm not going to be able to pay those expenses. I'll be dead. So, how does the masjid deal with those expenses and reimbursements from whatever may come from my small estate?
Right. That's something you may want to discuss with the local members. Insurance companies, something called an assignment, where the insurance expenses are paid to someone. So most cases, the families, they pay and they have the receipts, they turn them over to the insurance companies, they cut them a check. But obviously, if you're not here, you can make that into a contract also. That I, so-and-so, being a sound mind and body, would like to have ICN take care of my burial expenses, and I allow this insurance policy to be paid for that. Something in those words. Obviously, you may want to concern the board here, maybe some lawyers, but it's something in that in those wordings. And once you talk to somebody here, then they'll take care of it. One thing you should know: alhamdulillah, again, I would thank my parents that we have never not done a funeral because of expenses. That you should rest assured. If someone cannot afford, we will still take care of them. This is the responsibility of our community, and it would be a big sin on all of us if we did not take care of our fellow brothers and sisters. And whatever you can, if your family members can help out, sure. In fact, to be honest, most families are pretty good. They don't want to have, my mother died, I don't want to pay for a funeral. You know, she took care of me my whole life. Hey, why I can't do this? No, mashallah, most of our family members are pretty good. But in your case, in some extenuating circumstances, maybe talk to the board members, maybe they can work out some sort of contract.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention that I think we have done it from the masjid, if anyone in need. So this is never, inshallah, an issue that I see in masjid will take care of it.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, we are fortunate. You know, I compare ourselves to some of the other communities, you know, the Hindus or the Jews or even the local brothers. You know, alhamdulillah, this is a gift of Islam that we have this feeling that, you know, this is our fellow brother. At least send him to the final place, you know, properly. Alhamdulillah.
I have a question regarding the ghusl. Can a husband ghusl his wife if she passes away or the other way around?
The question is as far as ghusl. Can a husband do washing for his wife? No. Can a wife do ghusl for her husband? In certain extreme circumstances, yes. But we don't have those extremes. What is extreme? That there is no Muslim man there to do the washing. Alhamdulillah, we have this whole community here. If someone dies, then you know they will take care of it. But in some extreme circumstances, let's say you're in Idaho. I don't know why I picked on Idaho. Maybe Wyoming. But someone there, if there's no masjid there, then if there's really nobody there, then in extreme circumstances, yes, you can. The wife can't be, you know. But the husband, if there's no Muslim lady there, then in those cases, there is maybe some concession if you could teach somebody, but if nobody's going to do it, there's no ladies in the community that are willing to wash, then you just do tayammum. Then you do not. The husband, no, cannot wash the dead, you know. And just while we're on that topic, tayammum. There are certain extreme cases where the body is really in a bad condition. You know, we've had cases, somebody drowned, somebody was burnt. In extreme circumstances, then we don't do ghusl, we do tayammum. That's as much as we can do. You just do tayammum of the body, but the janazah is still there. The prayer is still there. But as far as the ghusl, the fariza, the ghusl is saqit because of extreme circumstances. Yes.
I just want to ask: would you recommend that you know, even if you're like able-bodied or younger, that you should go and tour various graveyards, or you know, pick graves out, or you know, buy them and save up if you can for them? At all? Okay. So the question is, should you plan for your burial? Sure, definitely. I would say, I mean, hopefully our intention should be, you know, to shaheed in the path of Allah, as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said. You know, we want to be, you know, shaheed anywhere in the path of Allah. And we don't know where we'll die. But as far as planning is concerned, if you have elderly parents or if you are here, definitely. That's a reach out to the masjid. It can't hurt to have, you know, a couple of graves pre-bought, because it saves you the tension at that time. So obviously at that time somebody has died, you're already under stress, and now you have to go and, oh, I have to buy a grave, I have to, oh yeah, it just makes things a lot easier. So sure, you want to pre-plan, definitely. I would recommend, especially if you have elders in the family, get them involved. In fact, while we're on that topic, someone usually calls me, I'm sure Mike can tell you, this is my last speech, you know, for anybody who calls. We usually say we ask the families to decide two things. One, which masjid you want to have the janazah. Number two, which cemetery you want to have the burial. Sometimes if it's a sudden death, people don't know. I don't know. It's good idea now. If you can use this program today as a sounding board to go home and talk to your family, I think it's good. Talk to your wife, talk to your children. Hey, you know, if I were to die, what's going to happen? You know, we are very hesitant to talk about death, but you know, we should talk about death.
what happens? Who do you want to do the janazah? Who do you want to lead your janazah prayer? This is not something you should be ashamed of talking about. We should bring it up. And the reason why you bring it up, so then you'll have the peace of mind. I wanted my son to be there, I wanted this so-and-so to be there. Or I didn't want to be buried there, I wanted to be buried here. So talk to your parents. See if your parents are elderly. Talk to them. Where do you want to be buried? These discussions we should have with them. We should not hesitate. Yes, it's an awkward topic, but we should not hesitate. So especially when they're alive and they're functioning, these are discussions to have now, rather than when they become terminally ill, then you know I should have. Sure.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Just wants to know how can we learn the procedure of washing the body, and join, and if we want to join in it, how can we do that?
Yes, so alhamdulillah, my wife is here. She should be the one training the ladies. So you can give your number to her, and she'll add you to the list of volunteers. Yes, and we'll have that right after this question and answer session. Yes. If the brothers want to join also, but normally it's we need somebody available during the day. Anywhere between 10 to 12. So if you work, like normal people have regular jobs, then that might not be possible. But if it's possible for you to be available then and you're interested, you can leave your name, we'll add your name to a database. Sometimes we may call you. Most of the time we usually don't, because it is a private thing. If somebody has family, the families don't want outside intrusion. They want immediate family doing the washing. But in extreme circumstances when somebody doesn't have families, I know many Bosnians, some other communities, they're hesitant to do the washing. If that's the case, yes, we do get cases like that sometimes. Then if that's the case, then we can reach out to volunteers and you get sawab. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. What if any additional steps in?
That's a good question. I should have put that on the slide. Organ. I don't want to get into the fiqhi masla, is it halal or not? Books have been written on this. Is it jaiz or not? But if someone does choose to do that, then you should understand that it delays the process. The biggest company here in Illinois is called the Gift of Hope. They're the ones that do the organ donation. But if for any reason the deceased himself, they put themselves up for donation, they should understand that they're going to be causing delay for their funeral. It's going to cause problems for the family members that are alive. We've had this many times. More times than I would like to acknowledge is what happens is for somewhere down the line, the person says, yeah, I want to donate so-and-so. Whether it's halal or not, I would definitely ask you to go consult your scholars. But if they say they do, then what happens is that the Gift of Hope puts a hold on the body. What does that mean? That we are not allowed to pick up the body until the Gift of Hope releases that body. So then what we're talking about, if someone dies at 8 o'clock in the morning to be buried the same day, that's not going to happen. They take hours. And then they sometimes come and then they come at their own schedule. And just so you also know, it's not just to think, they're taking the kidneys. A lot of times they take the eyes. You open up the eyes, the eyes are gone. Bone marrow, that's a popular one. They just cut them, they just put some wooden rods here. It's not even sutured properly. You should understand that's going to be the condition your family members will have to see in that stage once they're doing the washing. Just keep that in mind. But it does delay everything. We can't, many times this happens. It's really frustrating. The family is actually frustrated. The wife is there, the children are there. So look, we want to go to the janazah. They said, no, we can't. The Gift of Hope hasn't released the body. And then until they go through their procedure and whatever it is, then we finally do it. By that time, the time is gone. And they have to wait till the next day. So just keep that in mind. No, it doesn't take them days. It takes them hours. But it can be many hours. Yes. I'm sorry? Yes, that is true. Yes, brother.
So if someone dies on like a Wednesday afternoon, so the burial would be Thursday.
Yes.
At that point, is it better to possibly wait until after Jumu'ah to bury them?
No, that's a good question. Some people want the fazilat of being buried on a Friday. No, because the fazilat of being buried quickly outweighs the benefit of having bigger people. So yes, rush, study or hurry and rush them to their final destination. Yes, I can understand what the temptation would be to have more people. You can have more people make law for them, sure. But just to delay for that reason, no. Anybody else? The question. Can you wait to come overseas? If it's going to cause a family tension, family feud, someone says, sometimes it causes fights within the family, then maybe. But if they understand that look, if they come here, they're not going to do anything. Wherever it's going to come from, where are they going to do? It's going to look at it. That's it. What are they going to do? If they're going to re-put on, they can do that there. If they're going to, everything can be done later on. But just to delay, you are actually harming the deceased just for somebody else's benefit. That's something to keep in mind. But I know sometimes family dynamics are a little bit different. And if someone, is going to cause the family feud later on, oh, why did you wait for me? Why did this happen? Then I guess, you can. But ideally, you should try to explain to them. Yes, we can accommodate you as the living family member, but for the person that died, the best thing for them is to be buried as soon as possible. Yes.
Yeah, one question. Is the funeral insurance is halal? Your funeral insurance is halal?
I can hear you. Funeral insurance.
Yeah.
Fatwa-wise, most insurances are haram. We should not have insurance at all. Even like auto insurance, the ulama, medical insurance, they give the concession because without it, people, they go into bankruptcy. But funeral insurance, I would say there's really no need. Like $3,000. I mean, some people have a lot of money. But that's something that can be taken care of by dealing with the family member and taking care of that. But if someone really needs help, yeah, I guess. But to be honest, we should not be involved in the whole insurance thing. Some people, is based on that, the life insurance. If for some occupations the employers give them life insurance, like the police, military, fire, that's mandatory. They give them that. If that's the case, that's okay. But to take out extra insurance, that again, I would refer to the ulama. They do not look positively on that. But if someone, they don't have money, I would suggest that's the case. You can start saving money, $50 a month now, or $10 a month, even now. By the time in a couple of years, in fact, that's what some masjids do. Masjid Farooq, here on the south side, they do that. Some people give their monthly stipend because for some reason it is a lot of money for some people. So what they do is they have like a funeral fund. I know Masjid Farooq has that. What they do is they have a group and they have a list of people and then they contribute maybe $10 a month. So $10 a month, it doesn't sound too much, but $120 a year for 10 years, that's money right there. So that adds up. So what they do is, as needed, then they pay for the funeral from that fund. So they keep track of who's been paying for how many years, and okay, that's how much money you have, and then you can subtract that from the final expense. But if the whole community cannot come up, and to be honest, that has happened there, then that money is used to pay for that expense. But for individuals, to answer your question, if that's the case, it's just for your own protection, I would say to set aside $100 a month, and then you can be saved within a few years.
Assalamu alaikum. So, is that a law that you cannot reuse the grave, or is that a cemetery rule?
Cemetery rule. Yeah.
Okay, so if we have our own cemetery, we can reuse the grave, basically.
If they allow it, but again, it would have to be zone to count the property. Even in our cemetery, inshallah, that we're thinking of buying, we're thinking of not using any cement box. But again, that would have to be, once the rules, they have to be approved by the state. I don't see any problem, but you never know.
Not the box, reusing the
Reusing the way, yeah. I mean, again, as long as it's, how can we say, documented, it should not be a problem. Because the body usually takes a few months, if not years, then as they do in Baqi, in Medina. They take out the bones and they bury the bones, then it's reused. But here, I don't know if that would be practical, because we have so much space. Baqi is, they want the fazilat of being buried in Baqi, and then back, like, big cities like Mumbai, there's not too many cemeteries in the city, then definitely be used. But here, that's something that can be looked into. If it's practical, and if it is, then we can follow through with that.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. In case of a person is shaheed, do we give ghusl? And what would happen in case of, like happened in New Zealand, where they shot the people in the masjid? And the other case is, in case of fire, people tell that if anyone dies through fire, they are considered as shaheed. So
Shaheed is referred to as someone who's passed away in battle. So there's two types of shaheed. That's something you have to understand. One is a haqiqi shaheed. One is the hukmi shaheed. So hukmi shaheed means he has the sawab of being shaheed. But as far as the protocols of in this world, do you follow the protocols or not? Why is that important? Because technically, for shaheed, you do not do washing. Shaheed means someone who is in the battlefield fighting for the sake of Allah, as we have in Uhud, the Shuhada Uhud, Hazrat Hamza and Hazrat Abdullah bin Jahash and Hazrat Musa bin Umayr and all the and in the battlefield of Mu'tah. Technically, they're not supposed to be ghusl. You bury them even when their body is bleeding. That's their fazilat. But again, here, the question is a extrapolated question. The actual shaheed, the haqiqi shaheed, he who dies in the path of Allah, defending Islam. But a hukmi shaheed, as you mentioned, someone who's burned, someone who's drowned, someone actually who's died of diarrhea, that's also considered shaheed. But it's not a haqiqi shaheed. It's considered a hukmi shaheed. So if that's the case, no, then you still do the ghusl, and you bury it.
Okay, and we have probably just a few questions sisters are writing, and then maybe one question from brother, then we will proceed to the demo.
Sure, I'll be here if you have any other questions in particular.
So, in the meantime, if the brother is ready, you can... Anybody else?
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question that if a deceased person has a will that he wants to be buried overseas, in that case, and we know the importance of buried and hurry up as soon as possible. So in that case, what we're supposed to do?
As I mentioned, even if it's will, you don't obey makhluk while you're disobeying the Khaliq. So because of these three reasons we gave earlier about the krahiyat of sending the body overseas, we really should not. But if it's going to cause, again, a family feud, it's going to cause tension, I guess you could, but ideally you should not, even if it's in their will.
So if the family agrees, you can bypass the will, whatever.
Yes, yes. If you explain to them that these are the harms, embalming is haram, it's mutilation of the body. And the body won't be buried for at least another 3-4 days. And we'll be spending extra money. So if they understand that and they say, okay, we agree, but even though their father and mother said no, but that's okay. They're doing it for the betterment of the father. Otherwise, they would be aiding their elders in committing haram. So keep that in mind. So, just, okay, fine, that's their decision. We're not knocking you for making that decision. Many people, especially, I know the elders, I don't want to be buried in a Kafir country. I want to go back home, some other stuff. That's completely understandable. But maybe they did not know. Because some people, to be honest, I don't know how many of you knew about this symbolic law. How many of you knew about taking the time? So if they didn't know, if they made a decision based off of lack of knowledge, then it's actually you helping them by correcting that decision. Yes, sir.
We can go to the question.
This question here is the one that is supposed to be done. The question is, does the janazah prayer has to be done by an imam or alim, or any family member can do it? Ideally, it should be done by the imam. But there's only one concession, is if a family member wants to lead the prayer, they should. So the first preference, yes, is to the family members. But again, family members who know how to do the, know the protocols, they know there's prayers involved. If they know how to do that, yes, the best would be the family member. But if family member is not qualified for whatever reason, then the imam can do it. Next question. Same-day burial is not happening just because of digging people timing. Same-day burial is not happening because, yes, because of the restrictions of the cemeteries. They don't have the staff available to be there 24 hours, at midnight. They're not going to dig a grave at midnight. So yes, because of that, we're restricted due to the timings of the cemetery. Oh, good question. Does the janazah have to be in the masjid? No. Technically, in the books of fiqh, it's makruh to have janazah in the masjid. But why? Back in the day, because the bodies they leaked sometimes in the mouth or other parts of the area. You don't want to bring the jasad inside the masjid. So it should be actually outside the masjid. So this gym is actually proper. Technically, it's not a masjid that has been waqf for salah, so it's something outside. Don't bring it outside the masjid, in back home. They do in the Eidgah. But in singular circumstances, you can. Like in Baqi, like in the Haram. They do everybody there. Why? Because you can't have everybody leave the masjid and go janazah there. Everybody's already there. And that we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of people. So similarly here, like IFS, here, mashallah, I think we do janazah here in the gym, which is okay. But like IFS, practically people are going to go down. It's just not practical. So in that case, we just bring them in from the outside, bring them in. Everybody just stays there, they pray and they go. Because we're not vilifying the masjid itself. Because alhamdulillah, the body is not leaking. We're not going to make the masjid dirty or anything. Because if the blood or any bodily fluids fall in the masjid, it doesn't count. Yes.
So all those questions are answered?
Yes, there's only two I did this.
Okay, so I think we can do the demo, and then after the demo we can do the lunch, and if there are still time you can do a Asr prayer is at 4:15. Asr prayer is 4:15, so we can do the
Azan is at 4? Okay, so we have about 5 minutes. Okay, so we'll try to do, so the men are here and the ladies.
Yeah, men are here, ladies will go to the men's